I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You got it.
Okay, we'd like to know all board members present.
Yeah.
Item C, approval of the agenda. Motion.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved in second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0. Comments from the superintendent?
Sure, I actually have a proclamation by the governor here to read. So, to the people of Kansas, greetings, whereas the mission of public schools is to meet the diverse education needs of all children and prepare them for future success. And whereas the Kansas Constitution trusts locally elected school boards with the maintenance, development, and operations of Kansas public schools. And whereas the local school board members are accountable to their communities for accomplishing the mission of public education in Kansas. And, not that. Whereas Kansas Public Schools members advocate for communities or children in public schools, and whereas the members of Kansas Public School Boards of Education are committed to providing an excellent education for every child in each community, and whereas locally election school board members devote countless hours to the governance of our public education system and success of Kansas children. Now, therefore, I, Laura Kelly, Governor of the state of Kansas, is here to claim January of 2025 as School Board Recognition Month. So, some of our schools have provided you some snacks. So, just as a show of appreciation, so we do appreciate everything that you do. Not a very well-paying job, from what I'm gathering. Although that is legally allowed, though, that school boards can be paid now. I can't speak that I know of anybody who are, but for tonight, I guess you'll get paid in some Chex Mix and some Little Debbie's and some pretzels. And anyway, just our appreciation. So thank you.
Any more whereas and therefores?
No,
Oh, just that
is there where on to? Is that-
one. Yeah.
Any comments for the president? I have none. I don't have consent agenda.
I'm going to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0. Comments from the public?
We do not have any.
Item 8, Piper Sandler presentation.
Okay. We have Dustin Hagen from Piper Sandler in Kansas City, right? Kansas City, correct?
Yes.
Yep. All right, so Dustin works with Piper Sandler, they were the first to work with us on the current bond initiative, so it's going to provide some detail regarding the bonding, the status of our current school bonds. If you have any questions that you have, give you some more information, and anyway, so welcome, Dustin. Thank you. And he does have a handout for you a little bit, but
Yeah. Thanks, Lonnie. Good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone again. I think it's, when we did the refinancing in 2021, I think I may have been here maybe in 2022 as part of some conversations we had over just long range planning as well, if I remember right. But it's been a few years, so good to be back here again. And as Lonnie had mentioned, really just really thought it'd be a good idea just to provide a Planet Finance update, an overview based upon where we are today, related to the existing bonds, number one. But number two is just as we get to the near the payoff of the existing bonds, like what options would be available to the school board as you're obviously probably evaluating and studying kind of facility needs and various improvements within the school district. So obviously as you do that on an ongoing basis, there's always an element of affordability. Obviously projects aren't getting any cheaper, and so as you think about affordability of projects, I think the assessment is how do you align capital needs with affordability of what can be done relative to tax support within the school district. So this is intended to kind of just provide a very high level, not specific to any project, but just a high level overview of what that could look like again in the next couple of years as the existing bonds are paid off. So with that, I mean, obviously rates are, the biggest cost of any transaction, right? So obviously much has changed since 2021 when we did the refinancing. It's, the question is, where do rates go from where they're at today? I think my crystal ball has certainly been shattered, by this point in time. It does feel like, I don't know that we're gonna move much lower than where we are today. I mean, I think there's some things obviously we don't control that could, let rates settle at a little bit of a lower level, but it feels like there's more upward pressure, than there is downward pressure. I would say just historically speaking, you can see if you really just remove kind of the COVID era, right? I mean, think about where rates are today. It's actually very comparable to where rates were kind of pre-2020. So historically speaking, it's actually not, we're not in a bad position from a rate perspective. So yeah, it just gives you a little bit of perspective of just historical rates, where we've been, and where we currently are. Plan of finance, obviously a couple of variables are that go into a plan of finance. And again, this is really somewhat no different than things that you look at on an annual basis related to your budget. Obviously, valuation trends are kind of an important part of not only thinking about existing bonds, but also setting mill levies at the appropriate level to support not only the existing bond payment, but operations of the school district. I think it's, just maybe a couple of points here in valuation trends and valuation growth, right? So 10 years, you're at a 5% valuation growth. 3 years, you're at a little less than 4% growth. I would say fairly modest. I would say I don't see the drastic fluctuations for Hiawatha schools as we had with other school districts. So it feels like there's more stability in valuations than there may be in other places. I would always caution, people, and again, we take a conservative approach to valuation assessments or valuation growth projections, just given the unknown of what it is. I would be hard pressed to assume that we're going to continue to grow at 5% a year if that's the 10-year average. I think we got to take a more modest approach. And if we end up growing more than what we're evaluating or predicting in a financial model, obviously it just puts the district in a better position to be able to provide more mill levy management in future years. State aid, again, there's districts that's never qualified for state aid, and it's primarily related to your valuation per pupil is higher than most school districts, and so therefore the state doesn't provide any financial assistance related to helping make payments on outstanding bonds. So again, nothing necessarily we can do about that situation either. And, in terms of mill levy history, again, I think there's an element here. Think about when we approved the last bond issue. I think that was in 2014, if I recall correctly, right? At that point in time, if you remember, for those of you that may have been on the board, it was really a communication where we passed the bond issue. The mill levy was going to go up for, I think, 3 to 4 years, and then we were going to come back down to on the existing level. You can see kind of where that happened, right? So in 2014-15, that mill levy is actually very comparable to where it is today, right? And you see kind of what happened from 15-16 through 17-18. The mill levy did jump up. I think probably what happened during that time period as well is that valuation was probably higher than what was projected, which allowed the mill levy to come back down quicker than what was originally anticipated. So yeah, I think a number of positive things that occurred there. And again, I would just say, in terms of your total mill levy, obviously, you've been very diligent with mill levy management. As you all know, you're limited obviously to tax support based upon your various funds. The one challenging thing for all school districts is, no one's limiting the expense side of the equation. So I think it's to kind of be where you're at. I would say just is pretty impressive in light of just the cost of education. Tab number 2, again, just a real quick snapshot here, right? So this is really intended to be a little bit of a, if we take a snapshot of where we are today, and again, this is, actually, let me take a step back here. So if you go to that's the previous page where it talked about all the funds, just keep in mind and just reiterate this is that your bond and interest mill levy, as you're well aware, is a dedicated fund, right? We can't levy dollars in that fund. We can't transfer dollars from that fund to other funds, nor can we take other funds from other LOB or general and transfer them into bond and interest. So it really kind of becomes its own segregated fund, and because of that, we always think it's really its own financial plan as well, right? So that leads into that next page, which is really just a status quo analysis in regards to the bond and interest fund. You again, taking into account current valuation. And again, you'll notice in the bottom there, although we've been growing at 5% over 10 years, we're really only assuming a 1% valuation growth. So it's really less than inflationary growth factor as it relates to assessed valuation. And you can see, I would just tell you that, existing mill levy, so valuation, existing bond payment, which is around about $935,000 to $940,000 per year. We do get some motor vehicle revenues that get allocated to the bond and interest fund based upon what the mill levy in that fund is. And so then you think about, okay, well, what portion of that payment is actually being attributed to local taxpayers? So it's about $900,000 per year is being allocated and being supported by local taxpayers. So right now, obviously, the mill levy is 6.3 mills. So keep in mind, 1 mill in the district generates about $150,000 of revenue. Fund balance, right? So you can see that the fund balance is growing, right? So really what that means is we've set the mill levy at a level. Again, I would say it's the right strategy here to be conservative with making sure we're generating enough tax dollars to support the payment. The amount that's generated above what's required is basically building a fund balance. And I would just say that I call that capacity. Okay, so it's capacity for a couple things. Number one, it can be capacity for lowering the mill levy. Number two, it could be capacity for paying off bonds early. Okay, or number three, it's really capacity to basically layer in a new bond issue or new capital project while minimizing the impact to taxpayers. Okay, or four, it could be a combination of all the above. Okay, so I typically think about this fund as probably the second most important fund or account the school district has to manage not only the total district mill levy, but obviously the bond and interest mill levy. So really an important fund from a strategy perspective as districts are evaluating kind of options as you're nearing kind of the end of a existing bond this year. So I'm going to pause there before I kind of get into some hypothetical scenarios and to see if there's any questions on that information. So the next several pages again are very high level hypothetical. Again, they're dollar amounts that aren't tied to any project whatsoever. It's really just to give you a financial assessment of where you are today. And so really what this, I mean, oftentimes districts say, well, do we kind of like actually the bond issue in 14, do we really need to wait for the prior bonds to retire before we can move forward with another bond issue to fund the next round of capital projects? Okay, and the answer is no, right? I mean, most districts actually do bond issues well in advance of when the bonds, any current bonds are set to expire. And so, really this analysis is intended to show you a couple things: is how much could the district finance? And we assumed kind of 2026 as a hypothetical date, right? So in 2026, without increasing the mill levy above the current mills. Okay, and just for some context, in Kansas, school districts can finance bond projects for no more than 30 years. Okay, I have not shown 30 years. It's not been what the district has done in the past. I've really shown 20 and 25 years. And I would just say oftentimes the term of the financing is going to be based upon what are we financing, right? If we're just doing HVAC units, right, or roofs, probably not the best decision, right? So type of project, right? And then I would say number two is affordability. So again, we can always pay things off early, but how do we maximize the project that we're getting and minimize the tax requirement of voters? Okay.
So is
please do.
So one of the questions I had is, how do these new funds enter at what time in order to maintain continuity of the mill levy? So there's not a gap or a big overlap.
Yep.
You know, if it's kind of we want to finish the current one and then roll it in smoothly. Is 26 the year for that then, in order to have the most
Yeah,
even rate?
yeah, so I would say if, as I look at this, it'd be, the earliest would be, so think about, election authority doesn't
Mhm.
always align with actually when bonds are issued, for example, right? So I think the ideal probably timing is if there were things that needed to be handled, November of 25 election would be probably the earliest timeline.
Mhm.
And then it could be anytime kind of after that. And I'll like maybe go through just some like, hey, what, if you're thinking about future projects, what's some election dates
Okay.
in terms of just, well, what's allowed by Kansas law, right? Number one, but what are some things to consider from a timing perspective?
Okay, and I guess the downside to waiting longer is then you just don't have a streamlined mill levy. It would end up dropping off because the bond and interest can't go
Mhm.
for anything else.
Correct, yep.
So that would theoretically go to zero and then
Correct.
we'd have to start back up.
I think it's that from a financial plan perspective, yes. I think the other thing is just the cost of what you're doing is going to continue to go up.
Right.
That'd be the other side of it.
Okay, but just back to the original and you'll work on the different scenarios,
Yep.
but essentially November of 25 would be the way to keep the mill levy the most
Yeah,
flat or linear.
yeah, so I think by, I'm gonna do some rough math here. Again, I think by I think my budget here is 1.8. Probably by your 27, 28 budget,
Mhm.
you're gonna have enough dollars in the bond fund where the mill levy is gonna be forced to go to zero.
Okay. Okay.
So I would say the earliest is November of 25. The latest would be then, if I'm thinking about 27, it'd be the spring of 27.
Okay, so there's a window there.
There's a window.
It's not an absolute.
No, that's correct. There's a window.
Okay.
And I also think it's an element of giving yourself flexibility, because again, I always think about, sometimes elections are surveys, right? I mean, you can put together the best plan that the board thinks needs to be put together based upon community feedback. But you really don't know until you ask voters to decide whether they would be supportive of that project. I kind of view it as actually it's a survey, regardless of what it is. So give yourself flexibility, because if you think what the plan number one is the right plan, but the public doesn't think that, they're gonna vote no, and so then it allows you some flexibility to kind of refigure what that is.
Okay. Yeah.
So in this example, and I'll begin. It's kind of a 26th, so no, I kind of figured this is a November 26, November 25, early 26 election, so a 26 bond issuance. This is just showing that over 20 years, if our objective was to keep the mill levy at the 6.3 mils. The district financed $12.5 million over the 20-year period. And then the next page, again, all the assumptions stay the same at this point. The next page is saying if we did, sorry.
Is that assuming that interest rate as of today or whatever is on here?
It is, it is, assuming it traded and get correct. Yeah, so I mean, there's, again, as you think about, I mean, as we get closer to whenever that date could be, I mean, obviously, we'll be refining this based upon actual projects and market conditions and everything else that goes into it. So what I want to do is, and again, I've done this, the tab number one is everything on a 20-year basis, and then tab number two is everything on a, I'm sorry. Take that back. Everything is in tab number two. I went through the 20-year scenarios first, and then I went through 25-year scenarios second. That makes sense. Okay, so what I wanted to say is, again, if $12.5 million does not require a mill levy increase, I wanted to provide you increments of different bond amounts and what the mill levy requirement would be for each of those bond amounts. Okay, so 15 million as an example over 20 years, okay, is a 1.128 mil increase. Okay, and then the next page shows you 20 million. Okay, it's a 3.428 mil levy increase. And they actually have a summary page too. So there's a summary page that actually shows exactly, I mean, we talk about things in mils, right? But I think we got to convert those to dollars. Okay, what is what does that mill levy increase mean to me as a taxpayer who has a $200,000 home, right? So, yeah, or ag land or a commercial business. So then 25 million is a 5.78 mil increase. And then 30 million is nearly an 8 mil increase. So I wanted to give you those over both 20 and 25. Okay, so on the 25-year basis, for example, basically 15 mil, I would say like, 12 and a half, a good number for both 20 and 25 years. It's really not going to move the needle much relative to, hey, if I go 25 years, can I get more dollars? It's really kind of at 12 and a half is still right around the right number. But for those other amounts, you can see that again, going longer, it's no different than doing a 20-year mortgage versus a 25-year mortgage, right? It's going to make our monthly payment lower. Same concept here, right? We go from a 20-year bond to a 25-year bond. Our annual payments lower, which requires less annual mills, but for a longer period of time.
At a higher rate.
A higher rate, correct, yeah. Yep. So you can see then maybe the best summary page is actually page 3 or tab number 3, I'm sorry. So this is, again, that calls the taxpayer cost analysis, right? So you see all those scenarios are kind of up top here. And you can see that, okay, really I'll just use 30 million as an example, $30 million. Under a 20-year scenario, it's an 8 mil increase. Okay, which if you look at this, let's just use 200,000. Let's use the $200,000 home. Okay, 8 mils is about $183 a year for a $200,000 home, $91 a year for a $100,000. Okay. Well, if you look at 30 million over 25 years, it's lowering the mill levy requirement by, this is called 2 mils approximately. Okay, so what does 2 mils really mean? Well, if it's a $100,000 home, it's about $20 per year. What lowers it? What 2 mils means? Okay, $40 for a $200,000 home.
So it's overall more expensive because of the rate difference in paying it for longer, but
Longer
the
period.
cash flow is better.
The-
From a impact on the taxpayers.
It's a lower tax, 25 years is a lower tax impact.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say, I mean, in most cases,
From a year to year standpoint.
Yeah. So yeah, it's again, we think about things as mills because that's how we budget. But I think it's as we talk to the public about different projects and what those could be, we're gonna basically convert mills into the monthly costs or annual costs of taxpayers. So the same thing. So then there's 3 pages there. The second page is going to be commercial property. Again, we'll see why there's 3 pages, right? To keep in mind that every type of property is assessed at a different rate, right? So residential properties, the assessment ratio is 11.5%. Assessment rate is 11.5%. You have commercial property, which is assessed at 25%. You have ag land, which is assessed at 30% of use value. So I wanted to show you kind of what all those were, right? So you have the next page shows the impact to commercial property. And then I would say this next page here in that tab number 3 shows you the impact to ag land property. And I would just make one comment around this because as you know, it's use value based and not every piece of ground has the same use value. And so I wish we could give you the exact impact to every parcel in the county, but that's not realistic, right? But so the Department of Revenue provides the median use value for all the different soil types in every single county each year. And so all we've done, just to provide you an example, is we've taken the average of those median use values, just to give you an assessment of what does it mean for a acre or quarter section of dry crop land or grassland, based upon those mills. And again, I always say that if there is an ag landowner who has tax statements, we're more than glad to kind of help evaluate what the exact impact is of whatever mill levy is required. So then, you had a good question on, Ian, you had a good question on, just timing, and so I just wanted, the very last tab was just a, again, very high level calendar, and again, this could be applied to any date, but I just said, okay, if November, for example, was a date where where the Board of Education, and this could be November of 26, right, as an example, but if there's a project you want to take to the November election, really the latest date for the Board of Education to take action is going to be at your August meeting. Okay, so I would say prior to your August meeting, though, you're gonna know my scope of my work, my bond amount, obviously your date of election. Kind of those three things are gonna be the key part. So there's obviously a lot of legwork that goes into getting to the finality of you as the board taking official action to put something on the ballot.
So if you were doing a spring election, what is that?
Great. Yep, so yeah, that's
What
so
would that be?
yeah, so actually the next page is I gave it. School districts can have one special election in the calendar year. Okay, and that special election has to be 60 days before after the general election. Okay, so in theory, the first opportunity for, and I would say the general election is, obviously, there's no cost to a school district for a general election. A special election, obviously, because you're the only issue on the ballot, you'd be paying for that election. And so you just need to look at, the county clerk's gonna know exactly what those costs would be for a special election. Actually, I gotta remember, I can't remember if 14 was a special election or not. Anyway, so again, I picked April as a date, but just keep in mind, it could be, it could be January. I should say January's kind of a bad month. It could be February, March, April, May, I would say would be your special election months. To pick. And so I just picked April. And so if it's an April date, you're looking back 3 months and the board's having to make a decision by, I mean, honestly, like a year from this meeting, you would be calling an election if you want to proceed with a special election in April.
In your experience, from the date of a meeting like this.
Yep.
To the time that most districts have a bond election.
Yep.
What's the typical timeline?
I've seen it go, I've seen a November date, very, very feasible. And I've seen it take another year. I think it depends. Again, I think it depends on the project, and I think it depends on affordability. I mean, I think if you can get to the spot where you have a good project and you can make the case for affordability and why now is the right time, I think whether it's November or April, I think you're in a very good spot.
Yeah. And I would assume that real simply that the more complex the project, the longer it takes. New buildings take longer than HVAC bonds.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's
that seems like common sense, but.
But I also think it's a little bit of, I mean, my assessment is that if there is a need, it's not only do you see the need, but I suspect other people see the need as well, right? So I think a little bit of it's, if it's a want and you can, and it's a need, I think you can probably gain, I always think about this as consensus, right? It's like, hey, we don't know the outcome until we ask people to vote on it, but if you go through a process where you're evaluating facility needs, you're having community engagement and dialogue around the needs and the project, and people can see the need is fairly clear, then I think there's a pathway forward that's along the timeline of this.
So Dustin, if you use this scenario and you do it in 26, you've got 2 years left on your existing bond or on our existing bond. Does that get rolled into the new bond, or can you keep those separate? Because I'm guessing that one is probably a cheaper interest rate. So, or how does that work?
Good question. We would not consolidate them unless it made sense to consolidate them. So what I would say is right now, your assessment's correct, that the rate on that is just, you almost hate to pay it off, honestly, because the rate's so low, right? You rather earn, if you think about your fund balance right now, you could probably turn around and pay someone off, but like on my idle cash, I can earn 5% on my idle cash.
Right.
And I bet we're paying probably less than 2%. That's my guess. So I would say no. So in this case, I would say we would not pay them off. We just leave them outstanding as is, and we just issue a separate series of bonds that would go whatever term we wanted to go, and those bonds would just pay off as is.
Yeah.
And that was kind of to my point about timelines, so that we're minimized stacking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because really, I mean, if you think about 20. Let's use April 26th as an example, right? So, I mean, in theory, it's 1 year stacking because you have cash to pay it off essentially. But
Right.
I mean, the value of the cash in the bond fund is we're able to actually use that cash to leverage a higher bond amount for new projects.
Mhm.
Is what we're doing.
So the value of the cash is greater than the interest that we pay.
It is, correct,
Yeah.
Yeah, so in theory, I mean, I guess in theory, it's, I would say 2 years is really what it is
Mhm.
from 20, I mean, whether it's a November election or an April election, it's really kind of a 2 years. I call it what I would say is like a wrap, right? Where we have 2 years of existing payments, we have a new bond issue, we're just basically taking the new bond issue, keeping it separate, we're just wrapping the payments of the new bond issue around what we already have existing.
Mhm.
Questions for anybody? Very informative. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Have a good evening.
Anybody out there?
Alright, item I. Officer election evolution.
All right, so this is something we do every year. A long time ago, the way that the district elects their officers was the standard protocol. There's this legislative change since that point in time. Every year we have to adopt this resolution that allows us to deviate from the state statute of the January prescribed date for elections. So this is what we've done since that legislation changed. Did it last year, those of you who were here, some of you would have been your first meeting. So I'm not sure if you remember it or not, but this is what we do every year. So it's a resolution that formally has to be adopted. If you don't adopt it this meeting, you don't have a choice.
Right.
You have to, you do that or you have your elections. So the document is in there, Levi, and leaving anything out there that they need to know.
No, I think you got it.
There is the recommended action there. And you've got two different resolutions there, Levi.
Yeah, that I was gonna, yeah. There's a resolution for officer elections and a resolution for establishing date and time. So they're just two separate.
So we might want to change that motion to adopt simply those two resolutions as are labeled there, 2025-08 and 2025-09 to be the letter.
Yep.
So that would be recommended action. But do you have questions about that? We have just found, I think historically, that it works better to do that at the beginning of the fiscal year for us. Most schools still do.
I'll move to adopt resolutions 2025-08 and 2025-09 as presented.
Second. Moving in second, all in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0.
Levi, do you have to turn anything in on that or just have it in the record?
No, just have it on record.
Item J, board docs. Levi.
Yep. So Board Docs is doing kind of an overhaul of their software. That's going to be an overhaul for what we see putting the agenda together, and also for what you guys see using the agenda. There will be a lot of upgrades with it. Some features like being able to individually make notes on the side of things, highlighting things. So there are a lot of upgrades that come with it. It also obviously comes with an increased cost. So we pay $2,700 for Board Docs right now, and that would go up by $2,000
A year.
a year. Yeah. But basically, the way she explained it to me is there's not really a choice in upgrading or not. They are upgrading, and so we either make the upgrade or we look somewhere else. But one big advantage of staying with them would be that if we stay with board docs, everything rolls over. So right now, all of you are in board docs, you've got passwords, you've got logins, all of that. And all of our meetings and minutes from the meetings would roll over into this new system. Other than that,
Adoption of policies and getting those in certainly easier.
That is-
System we have.
yeah, that was a big advantage is the policies are going to be a lot more organized and a lot easier to put in than what they are. The system honestly is pretty out of date. I mean, it does need an upgrade. And I did look around at some other softwares just to kind of get a price comparison. And honestly, the 4,700 that it would increase to isn't drastically different than what a lot of softwares are now. So I do kind of think, staying or having all of our information and all of our meeting minutes and everything, there is a value there, but that's the information I know on that.
So our plan would be to stay with board docs if you're okay with it.
Remembering getting a printed packet in the mail every month, I support
Really?
get sticking with this.
Do you need us to make a?
Actually, no motions require that, but I did, we want to.
Just wanted
that you're good.
Yeah, and it will look quite a bit different on your guys' side. They are giving us 90 days, basically from January. So we have 3 months to kind of integrate. But
And I assume there's training for you on how to do that.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. Actually, I think I have a call with her this week on that.
Is that something that our IT people will have to be involved in or no?
I don't think so, no. But she did also mention that they would offer individual training for board members if any of you would need help. I don't think it'll be different enough that you would. But if you do, reach out to me and I can get you in contact with some training.
Okay, strategic plan of action. Yeah, the action plan.
Okay. I was thinking I'd project it, but it is so difficult to read on the screen. You actually do have a copy of that there. So I'll actually just kind of look at this. To recall last month, we visited with you about, with the process, we were walking through the process of the school improvement and accreditation and the KEYS 2.0 system. And in order to do that, hey, we'll be looking at completing a draft of an action plan. Well, it's time to get that draft approved by the board. That is statutory regulation that has to happen. But I want to walk you through it a little bit more, just kind of give you some of the highlights. So you've got that up in the kind of lime or the mint colored area there. So this is there are 4 fundamentals in the thesis system: the standard alignment, high quality instruction, structured literacy, and then balanced assessment. So this district has decided to go with quality instruction. So you've heard us talk about the HIPS, the high instructional or high impact instructional practices and strategies. That's quality instruction. So think of HIPS as being what we're doing for the fundamental that we've chosen to address in this part of the cycle. The other thing is the structures. Now the structures, I look at those as what are the means that you're going to go about learning that. So we're looking, you can choose either 1 or 2. And we're actually looking at 2 of them: professional learning and professional collaboration. We think they go hand in hand, but if you recall, we've got some dates this year that we've done high impact instructional practices and strategies. We do that again on February 14th. Yeah, Valentine, romantic, and we'll be here for that. And so that's another example of that. So that's the professional learning. Professional collaboration really comes into the conversations that we have and the discussions we have around the table about high quality instruction. When we do the walkthroughs in classroom, the conversations that the administrators and the teachers have about high quality instruction, what was observed in the classroom. And so that's the professional collaboration part of that. So it's our structures that we had to choose 1 of, and 1 or 2, fundamentals we had to choose 1 of, and 1 or 2 of the structures. So we did that. When you look around the state, really, the highest occurrence of the fundamental was standards alignment, and high quality instruction was number 2 across the state, the districts across the state. Well, we're taking the second one, that's our choice, but the standards alignment, we're kind of working on that in the background with curriculum alignment in ELA as well. Most likely, a year from now, I'll be talking to you about, hey, that's really our focus in the next year. So each cycle is really just a year. It's no longer that 5-year deal that we used to do, and it's really every year is its own cycle. So you make changes from year to year. Ideally, you continue on with the things that you started with from the year before, but you start stacking and adding a few more things to that. So if you move over into the blue section, it shows the measures of progress, and we kind of read, here's how we will measure how we're doing that. These are the things we're setting forth. We've got dates, and by a certain date, all teachers will have done the following. You can kind of see that in there. If you go over to the tan section, it's really about the justification. So the first column is, why is this the right action? And you can see, well, looking at our Kansas assessment program, basically our state assessments and ELA math data that indicates concern with poor instruction. So quality instruction was selected because it impacts all students in all grades and all buildings. Okay, so that's our why. The second part is also kind of a why. It's based on your current reality. Well, again, we refer to our English language arts assessments and the math assessments as well, but this is why we're going with high quality instruction, the HIPS processes. And then on the far right really talks about what might the next steps be. So what will we possibly be looking at adding next year? That's what we've got here. We've got some, here's what we're thinking of. And we've talked about standards with that. So that's your scope and sequence with curriculum. So this is really the same document we showed you in January. Ideally, I'm going to recommend that you approve this document as presented, and then tomorrow I'm going to submit it to the state, because the quicker I get it in there, the quicker the turnaround is. I'm not sure the percentage, a large percentage of districts have had to have a revision. They go back and change something, I'll have a question about that. I won't allow time for that. I'm hoping we don't have that. Maybe we've taken a few steps to make sure we don't have it, but you just never know. So it just allows for more time. So I'd like to get it, it's really not due until the end of the month, but I'd like to get it submitted tomorrow. So what questions do you have that?
If a new teacher comes in, do they have to start at the beginning? Or?
Well, you're talking, sounds to me like you're talking about the HIPS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to come up with a plan. How do we catch those people up? Yeah. We've got a process in place now that we'll need to refine a little bit, but with all the new people come into our district, well, certainly all the brand new folks. We have what's called Red Hawk Academy. It's really a little bit of on-the-job training, but also catching them up with things that we're not here for as far as that training goes. Of course, the longer we go down the line with the HIPS, the more likely it is people have missed. So we'll have to figure out how to maybe add dates with that. Instead of half-day sessions, maybe they become a day session, but that's really about the only way that we can do that. Yeah, because if we hire somebody next year, in theory, they've missed all of this year's HIPS presentations, plus the one we had at the tail end of last year. So it'd be 3 sessions that we would have missed. So, and that's 3 out of 4. That's a lot. So we do have to kind of have a plan on how we're going to catch that up, because that is absolutely a question I would be asking, how are we putting in to do for new people coming on board. Any questions with that?
And using next year's curriculum,
I'm sorry, again.
next year you're gonna.
Standard alignment, yeah. Standard alignment, yep, scope and sequence, and we're looking at the ELA right now because we're going to be coming in May to talk about different resources, because the resources are out of date due to not going up with the standards that are there now. So that's why we kind of got jumped the gun a little bit and got with ELA. One is really across the board, every elementary teacher, and a lot of our secondary folks are going to be involved in that as well. So
My move would approve the KISA action plan as presented.
Been moved in second to approve the KISA action plan as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0. I am in, no. L. Approve 2025-2026 school year.
okay, so we visited with the calendar committee. It's just this informal group of teachers and some classified staff across the district. Every year we kind of take a look at the calendar that we've used this year, and maybe ones in the past, what were good things, bad things, and then we look at what the calendar looks like next year and where things land. We try to craft something somewhat similar. Difference that would be in, involved, or that would be noticeable in this suggested calendar is a little bit more, few more days of in service to handle some literacy needs, to handle HIPs, to handle curriculum alignment, all these things that we're trying to do. Well, one, you can't get subs, and you can never get subs for anybody anyway. So really trying to build more days into that school for that. You'll see my note in there. In case you're wondering, the week of March 10th looks a little weird. Okay, so if you look at that, you've got that the parent teacher conferences on Thursday and Friday. Those are the triangles. And then you've got the teacher. I'm sorry, Wednesday and Thursday. And then on Friday, you've got that comp day that teachers have. If you look back on Tuesday, that same week, you've got a pink day, and the pink day says staff development. And why would we put a staff development day there? Well, here's what that really is. The high school actually, that's part of the Big East League, and the Big East League, now this thing has music festivals / contests. It is our turn to host the high school music competition. And that'll take all of our staff over there. They'll be busy doing that all day, take most of the rooms, most of the classrooms, the stages and other some of the classrooms are staging areas where the schools, each individual schools are. Some are places where they go in and do solos in front of judges. And then you've got the big performance venue as well. So those folks will be doing that. The pre-K through 12 teachers would be doing professional development. That's to be determined what that'll be, but I'm imagining there being a curriculum alignment is really what we'd be doing with that. So we don't have a say in when that is. We would not have chosen that date, but that's when it is. So that's why that looks really odd. It's odd, no doubt about it. Other schools are going to host a track meet. Other school, we got the music competition. But really, as far as teacher contract days, student contact hours, it's the same amount that we generally have. And we build some in for things that have been happening lately with snow days. So anyway, it's the same. Really no changes there. And teachers always want to be done when Memorial Day hits. Have school after that. See, it feels like every year school starts earlier. It doesn't. It's been the same way for 6-7 years here. So
graduation will be the 17th.
Yeah, most likely. Yep.
Okay.
Looks like it. But that's not necessarily on this calendar. That would be the day. I would just recommend adopting the district calendar as presented for 25-26.
Yeah, and I'll make such a motion. We can still talk about it if we need to.
Second. Moving in second to adopt the 25-26 calendar as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0. AASB policy updates.
This is your second read, and I do have some notes in there for you. There's really only one that I would say is different for us, and it's simply because we don't currently have a policy regarding fundraising. We have practices regarding fundraising. You can put a practice in the handbook and say this is how it's going to be. Then it's de facto policy. The difference is you have to put it in there. Okay, your handbooks has to be put in there every year. We're kind of operating that way. It kind of makes sense to just have a policy about that. But I'll leave that up to you. I feel this one here would suffice for our needs. And it's already ready-made and ready to go. The rest of those are, a lot of changes. I think I sent you the kind of the full version of what's different.
So federal funding stuff.
Yeah, and legislation and federal funding. Yeah, a lot of regulations, federal funding. Which I find ironic considering that all of the ESSER stuff is pretty much tapered and gone now. Now we're going to talk about federal.
This is probably the autopsy of that whole
You're
thing.
right. Yeah. Post-mortem. Yeah.
I did have one question about, so it's on page 29. It's item E under, looking at the whole page. It's about formal competitive bidding. And it's slid in there, item E, the district must document and provide a justification for all bids it rejects.
Okay, all right,
That's under sealed bids.
It's under formal, let's see, the heading is on the previous page.
More competitive bidding.
Yeah.
It's on the previous.
Right, but then if you look at the bottom of
Uh-huh.
page 20, it says if sealed bids are used.
Right, which we
Fine.
do commonly. So I didn't know if we were already in the habit of documenting and justifying the rejected bids and if we wanted to start.
No. Now I will tell you, when we do federal bids like that, generally you're talking a really large thing.
Yeah.
There are other entities involved with that.
Is that federal in this case though? Cause it just says
That's-
formal competitive bidding on that. So I didn't know if it's actually a,
Federal bid,
It's under the, whatever,
under the what?
yeah, it was still under the federal.
Yeah, that's why.
It is.
Yeah, that's how I gathered it.
okay,
And most of that stuff honestly is done at state level.
okay.
When it's done here, we don't go out and seek bids for that. Now, think about the
Okay,
federal money when we did the HVAC over at, the wood shop, or not, well, not the wood shop, excuse me. Well, yeah, we did, did over at West Campus, we did HVAC. We had to go through all those processes and the formal bid processes were really, those are taken care of, through the paperwork, through the state, and it kind of takes care of itself. And they're going to give you the list of people that are going to take care of those requirements.
okay. Yeah, that heading, federal programs is,
Not-
they're back on page 25, so that I didn't realize it was still
There's a lot of. paper-
part of that. Yeah, okay. So it wouldn't,
Wouldn't impact what we do here.
on a normal basis. Okay, that was my one and only question.
You think about all the steps that were involved with the
Yeah.
federal fair labor standards and the environmental impacts, and that's part of it too. So. What's your thoughts on having the fundraising policy?
I think it's a smart idea. But it does put it puts it all on you because it says the superintendent shall approve.
Yeah.
All fundraising activities.
Yeah. It does.
Would you want to add or designate?
I would, that's a good idea. If I had designate and name the building principals as the designee, that would be a good way to do that. So maybe note that change.
Yeah.
Legalize.
Okay. So, I'll make a motion.
Principal's like, I don't like that.
It does actually say that later on, it says fundraising activities must be pre-approved by the superintendent or designee and adhere to the following guidelines, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to approve the proposed policy changes with the amendment of adding or designate any place it doesn't for the specified fundraising guidelines. Yeah, there you go.
Second. Moving second, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0. And then HMS generator bids.
Okay, Tim, are you back there? I'd like you to come on up and let's talk about that a little bit. You actually have three, and we'll kind of just maybe call them 1, 2, and 3, but until there's a motion to say, which one you're gonna take, it's probably best to just
Leave the names.
leave them rather generically named. Does that help?
3 bids, yeah,
So from left to right, we'll go 1.
and I'm not sure what order they are in the docs, but
If you.
Can I start with a question?
Sure.
So two, it looks like 2 of the 3, unless I misread them, are pretty similar in cost.
Mhm.
And then 1 is significantly less.
correct.
Is there anything in the contents of the bid that justifies that difference? Or is it just a lower bid for the same thing?
I believe it's just a lower bid. I
Okay.
called and verified that it was indoor,
Mhm.
removing the old one. And they said yes. so.
Okay,
Because one of them on here, it says at the very bottom, no removal of old unit.
Well, I verified with him.
Well, it's not, it's a different.
it's a different one.
It's different
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one didn't mention it. One you're referring to didn't mention it. So there's.
Correct.
Replace generator with outdoor unit fully enclosed, no removal of old unit.
Yeah.
And then I think the one that you're referring to also sent a second bid, is that correct?
With an inside unit.
With an inside,
Oh, we didn't see that.
No, I know.
sorry.
So I think Tim is going to recommend a specific one, if you want to identify.
Scroll down, it's 4 pages long.
Yeah, keep going and
Keep going, there's a second bid.
And it's
On
considerably
number
higher.
on number
On number
two.
2, there's a second bid that's significantly higher.
If you
Oh.
look here, this is what we have is
You gotta
the
scroll
order.
down, yeah.
So that was the lowest, and then those two were the two that were comparable, I believe.
Correct.
Okay, so if you want to open them, just to be clear.
And-
I don't know how you do that.
So you're looking.
Yeah, okay.
That second
Yeah.
bid and to compare it to the number 1 and number 3.
So I'm gonna just ask Tim to skip to the chase here and really make his recommendation as to which one he's gonna recommend and why. And then you can ask, if you'd ask questions about that, I know, Ron, I know there's a question you're gonna wanna ask about that. But, and then if you decide to make a motion, then we'll somebody will identify that one then for that.
Well, I can say that each of these individuals were at the school. They all came and they looked at the situation, assessed the situation, and then placed their bids, based off of what we required. I am gonna make a recommendation based solely on the price that we go with, I can say the
First
name,
one,
correct?
let's say the first one.
That's the one you just showed me on it is number 1.
Yes.
On here, yeah.
Number
Let's say
one.
number one.
Okay, I would recommend that we go with number 1. Simply based off of price and based off of the conversation that I had with them on what they were going to provide. I believe that would probably be the best option for the
They're
district.
local as well, right?
They are local. They will provide, it'd be secondary after they get it installed. They will provide availability to a service contract if we need it. They said they could give me that information once we decide what we're doing, so.
Is that like annually or quarterly or?
Probably annually, well, paid annually, but I think they haven't actually given me specifications, whether it be semi-annual visits, quarterly.
Do we know how many hours it runs, like in a year's time?
It kicks on automatically. Our old one did. I'm assuming the new one will also. Runs for approximately 1 hour every Friday. So that we can do the inspections and tests,
Okay.
check all of the stats on the unit. And then, of course, if the electricity does go off whatever hours, but yeah, 1 hour every Friday,
It's diesel, right?
diesel.
So you have to bring fuel over, how do you just bring buckets of fuel, what are your gallons?
We have in the past currently just brought over 5 gallon
Okay.
at a time. It was suggested that maybe we could get a local vendor to back up a truck and fill it. The current one, and I think they may plan on using the existing tank, is a 75 gallon tank.
It's a lot of 5 gallon.
Yes, it is.
Bracket on containers. Okay.
Is there no natural gas line into that middle school?
There is. In visiting with each of these guys, they all said it would be a much more difficult and probably costly endeavor to bring in the natural gas for it. Probably would have to involve the gas company. And all of
It did seem
them,
more-
none of them bid that direction. They all bid for the diesel. And I did not receive any inverter bids.
This is a dumb question, but I'm sure there's good venting in that space.
Yeah, there's a
Oh,
roof. It goes through the roof. There's
Okay.
a muffler system that goes
Alright.
through the roof, and then there's a inlet suction valve
Yeah.
that comes through the side of the building.
And if any of you want to come see where that is, because it's not a very easily accessible thing, you have to know where it is to find that, so if you want to come look at it.
And he's taking out the old one.
Mhm.
Is he gonna like put a hole in the wall or cut it up
We're gonna
or?
use the existing hole. There is a 4 foot by 4 foot vent,
Okay,
and they will have to remove a few pieces off of the unit to just basically
Okay.
slide it out of that hole. So they use a conveyor
mhm.
just to slide it and pull it out.
Well, if this is the direction we want to go, I do think there is a substantial savings and you've done your due diligence on that, so. Knowing that people still may have more questions, I'll go ahead and make a. And if I'm making a motion, should I name them?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
That for the amount. and
Yeah.
the company.
So let's see here. I want to make sure I do this right the first time. I would make a motion to approve the bid for a backup generator for the middle school. From IAO Electric LLC for a cost of $34,925 as presented.
Second.
Moved in second to approve the bid for IOA to install new generator, backup generator at the middle school. On favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0.
Can we please
Thank
get
you.
some options for service, like,
Yes,
so we can, we don't want to be the same boat we were last time.
exactly. Yes, I will.
I don't know, superintendent's report.
All right, well, Tim, you just stick around here. So I'm gonna ask Tim to talk to us about snow moving and then snow removal and some other facilities things as well. So let's just start with the elephant in the room, the big white one outside. Actually,
What a snow, right?
yeah, that was, certainly about a 20 or 30-year storm. So
All in all, with the large amount of snow, I think that it went fairly well. Especially with this being Grimm's first time and they got plowed with such a enormous amount. There were some issues, I think, small, but with, correctable. I need to visit with them about kind of some of the locations where some of the snow did get pushed over some sidewalks, which made it more difficult for us. And some locations at the elementary, especially. Of course, the amount of the snow, I just don't know where they had to go with it, other than what they did. And then our group, Jim Ferris, Jeff May, Chris Gray, and all the custodians at the school district. I really commend them, so they did a good job of getting everything cleaned up. I thought
You
it
guys
was great.
did do it, yes.
Kind of. But yeah, it was a collaborative effort. It did go pretty good, I thought, for.
I will say, we were in Seaman yesterday for a wrestling tournament and their parking lot was absolutely horrible
We're like,
compared to ours. It was bad.
well, I'm glad to
It
hear
was
that. We are planning, I've got arranged with the city of Hiawatha to allow us to dump some snow out at the Brewing Park area where they put theirs. So we've got a dump trailer rented and a small dump truck available for us at the bus barn. So starting tomorrow, we'll start probably prioritizing the elementary school, the big
Mount Red Hawk.
Not Red Hawk,
Not Red Hawk's gonna get kicked
and
out.
try to start getting some of that trucked out of where it's at and open that lane back up at least. And then take a look at what's left and go from there. So we have it for 3 days and maybe expand that on to 5 days if we need to. Yeah, said he was gracious enough to say, yeah, that we could dump it out there. So we'll tack that starting tomorrow, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
any questions on snow removal? I know there's still a few spots that need some work and Tim's checked into those.
Not on our end, but how do we help prompt the community to do a better job of their snow removal on the sidewalks? I was pretty disappointed in the amount of waist-high snow that these little kids had to walk through, not to mention our mailman and stuff, but our own kids. Seems like the bar gets lower and lower every year. I know there's a city ordinance against it, which I think was actually posted on Facebook tonight.
I
saw that.
about it.
But, I mean, I know you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, but is there something that we can do to help remind people to take care of it, if not for their own sakes, for these little kids? We have a lot of kids that walk.
We put a PSA out. On
Yeah, I
that
mean,
now.
such that it is. But,
That's the last time we're getting this.
sure. And I don't, there's a lot of people that took care of business.
We're
There's a lot of
going
people that did.
our cumulative allotment, so. Do that.
So soapbox over,
I'm
sorry.
ordering no more snow.
Yeah, okay, good.
Tim, HVAC status,
We've had some more issues with Daikin units, both at the elementary and at the high school. From conversation with the tech that came out, it's probably the storm didn't do us any good. We lost electricity in town. Plus the blowing wind and snow had got into on 3 units, 2 at the high school and 1 at the elementary, into the inverter circuit boards and fried the boards. And then one of them at the elementary, again, is a compressor issue. They're supposed to, because I believe this is one that we've replaced in October. Supposed to be checking into the warranty issue of this and possibly being able to even get the labor. But he's checking into that, the Daikin rep, and is supposed to get back with me at least by tomorrow. So, but yeah.
When these things fail, is it consistently the same parts over and over? Or I mean, is it there just a specific weak link that we have to continually address, or is it all over the board?
So far for me, it has been mainly compressors. This is the first time I think that we've had circuit board issues. But what I've had 3 compressors now.
Okay.
Since I've been in the position, so.
Okay.
And have they all 3 been at the elementary?
They have all 3 been.
So to Ian's point then, is it a part that we have to wait around a while for?
Usually the last 2, they had them within a week or 2. I think one of them took a week to get, the other one took 2 weeks to get. But this is a single compressor in a double compressor unit, so they've split it. They're running the entire building, or those rooms that are serviced by that unit are running off of 1 compressor. So they're keeping up, but if you crank them up to 80 degrees, you aren't going to get them. It's going to crash them. So, but yeah, I checked temperatures this morning at the elementary, and those particular rooms, 69 to 72, they were holding. Elementary or high school, a little different. We did have to get boards ordered. He thought they would be in sometime this week. Haven't got me an exact time yet to come out and service it, but we've got some pretty chilly rooms up at the high school right now. 50, 58, some rooms. Tried to alleviate the problem today by getting some space heaters. Got them plugged in, and then we started blowing some fuses. Lost the internet for a little bit because it blew the fuse that went to the server room. But I think after doing some rearranging on plugs and so forth, we may have got it figured out. So
For the Christmas story. Right now, I'm trying to plug in the Christmas tree.
So I'm fingers
We've not
crossed.
had circuit board issues before, so is it fair to say that it's an anomaly? It's just caused by the
From the conversation I had, this was an issue with not only us, but with many other places or locations that have these similar units, because they said they were out doing new circuit boards all over the place. So I think it was just what to do with the storm, the way the wind blew, got into the units and shorted them out. Or in our case, it could have been the electricity drop for a while.
It flashed 4 or 5 times before it dropped too, so that doesn't help.
You know, I did, mine blinked like 3 times and that was it. I never went out. I never went out.
What else you have facility wise?
Dust collection. Yes. We were supposed to have met last week, but because of the storm, Archie Smith and an engineer he's bringing along will meet this Thursday, January 16th at the wood shop and start going over preliminary stuff with that. The air filters we've got, they've been installed over the Christmas break. Have you had a chance to use them?
Yeah.
They were seeing no problem.
Yes.
So if you recall, we had 3 air filters that we used. They're hanging, remote control, can turn them on 3 speeds, try to mitigate some of the fine dust.
My son commented on them, and he's not very observant, so I think. Wow. No, it's just teasing, but good job, yeah, on that, it sounds good.
Regarding the HVAC,
Oh, yeah.
not knowing what we may want to do with the HVAC at the elementary. And the fact that we have Daikin units at the high school also. And I'm just throwing this out there and I can get you guys more information if you need this. I do have, or had, TMI Daikin send me, maintenance programs on these units. It's a semi-annual maintenance program. They come out, spring and fall and thoroughly go through each of the units, look for, issues, try to mitigate issues before they may become a compressor failure. They clean the condensers on the roof. We still would need to continue to clean the filters inside the units in the building. And there's a, and I like to say, I can get you a copy of this, but there's a long list of the maintenance that they go through on the units to try to prevent these things from happening that we've been having happen, so. If anyone's.
With the maintenance schedule, I'm sorry, the maintenance schedule, would it address the problems that led to the compressor failures?
Probably not a guarantee, but
Do we know what the root cause of the compressor failures were?
at this point, no,
Yeah.
because right now all we're doing is the failure happens, I
Right.
call, they repair it, they don't diagnose it.
Okay, because that'd be a question I'd ask is, because I mean, they've replaced all three of them, right? Since are these things going to stop the issues? Are we actually just paying more money?
Right.
We're still gonna have time down? And tell me how this is gonna prevent the same issues from happening.
Right,
Uh,
I think I recall from the BCS presentation that the installation there and the lines and the matter that goes into that is probably what's causing that. I'm not sure maintenance company's gonna,
Yeah.
that's my first
I
thought.
mean, it's always a hedging of bets.
Yeah,
anyway, but-
yeah.
Or some preventive maintenance programs will give you a discount on parts
Mhm.
throughout the year. So like if you sign up for their preventive maintenance, you get 10% on, and so if that offsets.
I hadn't seen anything in this, but I can ask that
Yeah.
question of the rep and find out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it'll certainly keep us from having other problems, but if most of the time. We've got these consistent compressor issues, and this isn't really gonna address the consistent compressor issues, then it's just additional. Money that's really not gonna keep us from being
And it's a
down.
different story at the high school. and
That's right, that's right.
Well, at the high school,
So have we done any maintenance on the roof units at all?
the only maintenance that I have done since I've taken over is this summer, we got up and we cleaned the condensers the best that we could with a sprayer hose.
Is there factory recommended maintenance that needs to be done annually on
Oh,
these?
yeah,
And you're telling me that we probably haven't done it.
we have, I don't believe.
I guess we better find out what that all entails.
And I would be happy to
Yeah.
give the information to Lonnie so we can share it with you guys on board docs or whatever, so.
Okay.
Now, the high school, if you consider. Let's see, the high school has 7 VRU units on the roof. Servicing 45 VRVs. Or individual units, where the elementary school has 6 VRU units, but those 6 are servicing 67 indoor units. So.
So the load on
The
each one's a lot
load,
more.
yeah, a lot higher on the ones at the elementary than they are at the high school.
And we really haven't had the chronic issues at the high school.
I personally, since I've been in the position, haven't seen near as much, but I don't, historically.
Yeah, like the things we're having now are not some
Mm-hmm.
of the problems we had.
So just on its face, I'd say that it would logically say that it's at least probably a better investment for the high school.
Like you say, it depends on what we may do.
Right.
Whether.
That's right.
Better or not, so.
Okay.
But for the high school itself, maybe, yes.
Yeah, I'd fear that we wouldn't see any big difference at the elementary.
Does the middle school need some maintenance?
We have
We have the one that we
P1.
approved through P1.
a very different system though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a totally different system. Yeah, they've been out and done their initial assessments and they're supposed to be setting up at a time when they come out and start going through everything, so. Middle school.
I think we, 2 meetings, 3, I don't know, sometime this fall we went through that, yeah.
Other than that, I think that's about all I got.
Appreciate it. I do have one other capital outlay item for discussion. Jim, thank you, Tim. by the way.
Thank you.
Jim, where are you out there? So the transportation coordinator, Jim Ferris here. So talk to you about, now, I put in purchases and sale of buses. Because if we look at ever purchasing buses, we're probably gonna get rid of some too, so.
Maybe. I will suggest what would work on that best, but currently we have 12 buses. They range in age from 2009 is the oldest to 2023 is our newest. That is an activity bus, strictly an activity bus with one exception today, because I had a bus that was, the brakes were frozen and that bus was ready to go. So it went out on a route today for the very first time, and hoping never happen again. I'm particular about that particular bus. I don't even like it on a gravel road, but anyway, it's already got 20,000 miles on it in less than 2 years, or 18,000 miles in less than 2 years. So, we're at the place right now where we really need a bus probably this year, next year, and then the typical thing I've talked to other directors and other people around the state. Every other year you should be able to be in good shape if you depend on your fleet. I mean, we have 7 buses we use every day. We have football season and basketball season. We use 2 buses per trip. Football takes 2 buses for high school football, sometimes middle school football. High school basketball takes 2 because girls, boys, there's enough of both that we need 2 buses. So we generally do that. Occasionally the girls will take 2 vans, but I really don't, not fond of that, because we'll have 4 vans that are those kind of vans, and they're all getting some age and some miles on them. So I'd rather send a bus whenever possible. But with those 12 buses on any given day, 9 of them are on the road somewhere. That leaves me 3. For instance, this morning, like I said, we had a bus that the brakes froze up on. Literally froze. The emergency brake had a little moisture in there apparently from, well, all the moisture, and it froze and that bus wouldn't move. Got her in another bus, she run a route, everything's fine, everything's great. And that's the benefit of having 12 buses. We just go, well, we'll use 7 of them, or we'll use 9 of them. Ideally, we would need, because we use 7 buses every day, truthfully 14 buses. And as long as some of these other buses that aren't regular, I don't like the word spare because there's no such thing, because on any given day, any of these buses are going, if, like for instance, today the middle school went to the movies. So we used, Jeff used his route bus because Jeff is Jeff. And and then I used 2 different buses through the day. I used one bus, and then we had a few more kids. We have one 71 passenger bus that is 3 to a seat. And that gives you actually 47 if you go 2 to a seat. We all went across town, and we got 105 kids, plus, including teachers, on 2 buses. If we were going to the zoo in Topeka, that's 3 buses. We're not taking 3 to a seat usually that far. And I do have a current option on a bus that I'll share with you in just a minute when I get through with kind of where I'm going here, because I rehearsed all this in my mind, and I have to stay on track, or this will never happen. Most of our buses, the newest bus, as I said, is a 2023. The next after that is a 2020. From there, a couple of 19s, a couple of 17s, one 17, a couple of 16s, and everything else goes 14, 12, 09. And one of the things about our buses that's different, that I think sometimes we don't understand, our roads are rough, and these buses take a beating. If these were city buses, 200,000 miles wouldn't even that'd be nothing. But we're on roads that beat these things to death. Bus 4 is my favorite bus. I get a lot of teasing about that. That is the 2009 Thomas. That has 170,000 miles on it. That bus sounds like a log wagon, because it ran the reserve bus route for me for about 5 years before I became the director. And it rattles and shakes and makes all the noise. It's similar to the one that do you still own that? You still have it?
Unfortunately.
It's the cousin to the one you have, but it will absolutely, but it's still a good bus. We got new tires on it. It's smooth. I took it to football this year because I wanted to, and I liked it. And so our equipment fits in behind the back seat. And one of the questions that Lonnie brought up to me when he told me he wanted me to talk tonight was, what
what is our flow, or what is, how do we decide what buses we do with what? It flows. It really does. Bus 1 was the route bus for Robinson. It had a brake issue. We got it fixed, and it is fixed now. Well, the driver, that route used to be full. When Julie Johansson had it, that bus is a 71 passenger bus, and 48, 47, 48 is 2 to a seat. She would have 50 kids sometimes. So you had some kids 3 to a seat, 2 to a seat, whatever. That route has shrunk, and it's not near the number of students it was before, 30 to 40 on a full day. So our other buses, which are not as big as that one, will hold those students. So that driver drove bus 8, kind of likes bus 8. We need to keep our drivers happy as we can, wherever we can. So now he drives bus 8. Bus 1 is a bus that we'll use if we need it. Bus 1, bus 11, which is an old Bluebird, which honestly, truthfully, nobody likes. That'll be the one that goes if one goes. But as long as it'll get somebody where they're going, I kind of want to hang on to it for at least a little bit. And then certainly we can sell it and get rid of it for, $3,000 or $4,000 if we're lucky, because that's just what an old bus gets. With that being said, like I said, we've got our route buses. I'll just give you a quick rundown if it's okay. Our route buses, I have a 2012 with 93,000 miles on it. I have a 2016 with 99,000 miles on it, a 2020 with only 39,000 miles. These are updated as of today, by the way, just in case you might want to know that information. A 2017 with 122,000 miles, but it had a new motor put on it about 75,000 miles and a new transmission put in it about probably 30,000 miles ago. So and new brakes and some other stuff. And that's Jeff's bus.
Is that our Oklahoma bus?
No,
Okay.
no. Let's talk about something else. The Oklahoma buses aren't the problem that I get grief for about, but anyway, they have some minor issues. They're all taken care of. They're wonderful and great, and they're a fine part of our fleet. And I stand behind them and don't appreciate the gruff I get from 2 people. One of them sitting over there, and the other one's the mechanic who's a knucklehead. But anyway, look, I like Chris Gray other than that. So now with that having been said, where'd I get to? I got 2019 buses. One's got 54,000 miles. The other one has 95,000 miles. Why the difference in miles? Those have both been route buses from the start, because the one bus goes about almost twice as far all the way to the other side of Highway 75 every day, and it has since it was bought. And then the other bus has been, actually for a while, was the bus that just goes out 36 a few miles to Timber Road at the farthest. And most of it didn't go that far. Bus 3, one of my Oklahoma buses, is on that route now. And then the other short bus we're using for like wrestling, taking them back and forth to wrestling practice. We're using it for Scholars Bowl. When we need to take a bus, they can't take a van. They got too many for a van. We'll take that because they can get 20 people, 2 to a seat on those buses. Works really well and works out really good. So having one on a route and one to be a activity bus has really worked pretty well for us. And that's why I say the flow. Come August, we may decide to put bus 6, which is the other Oklahoma bus, as Ian has so lovely put for us. Well, I'm gonna go with that for a long time. I think we'll use that phrase. But that one may be on a route, because I've probably got 3 routes I can put that on. But let me give you bus 9, for example, the one to Fairview. There are occasions possibly where we're going to have more than 20 kids on that bus. Most days it's 12, 13. But if everybody rides that would normally ride, she's going to get over there and she's going to wind up with a packed bus with a lot of high school kids for whatever reason at Fairview. I don't know why that is. It's kind of unusual. But anyway, so we kind of ebb and flow with it, and we kind of decide what we're going to use based on circumstance. Bus 10 goes to Atchison presently. That's a 2012, 97,000 miles on it. That's a good bus for that. It just really works well. It does good for us. If we were to get a new bus, it would be a route bus, and it would be the 71 passenger like bus 1. And the benefit of that is, again, if we get ready to go to the zoo and the elementary school has 2 classes going that we can get around, it's about 100 to 110, 112 kids, we should be able to take those 2 buses and not have to take a 3rd bus. Because the 3rd bus, that's fuel, that's driver expense, that's a whole day. So There's reasons why we've kind of talked about the flexibility on this thing. It can be used on a route. And that route driver, no, not on this one. We don't need two of those. The Booster Club, and it's in process, they're wanting to buy a trailer for equipment for football, et cetera. So that's in process as well, something they've got me looking into and working on, and they're going to decide to do that sometime soon, which we'd asked them about it before, and this year they want to go ahead and do that. So it'll be like I think we're looking at a 5x8 or a 6x12, and that would hold equipment, water coolers, all that kind of stuff. We'd pull it with one of our vans or the white truck, which would also work well, and that would help with needing to have the understorage. And that's kind of why we backed away from the understorage on it. So where we are right now on buses is that, and through the wisdom of the Kansas Department of Education, or whoever does this, maybe the legislature, I guess, comes down with it eventually, or essentially, they have us an option where we can go into the Kansas Bus Purchasing Program, and we can go through and put what we want specifications, which is exactly like Bus 13, except the understorage, and don't have to go through a bid process. It's already done. That's essentially done through this. So I've been in communication with our IC bus dealer, which is Midwest Transit, which they also have a mobile tech, which if something happens, warranty or otherwise, he can come and work on it at our place. We don't have to haul the thing to St. Joe or anywhere else. It's all done right here in our own shop, which has been really, really great when we've needed to do that. And we have every mechanic we've had, including Chris now, IC buses. That's what they just like them. There's parts, service, maintenance on them. It's all just, that's what they'll like. Dennis, Tristan, Chris, and that's just kind of that's been the running trend with these guys. And I talked to Chris about this. I said, what do you think? Well, we have a Thomas, we have a Bluebird. If you really want to get him fired up, mention those buses. And if I tell him I'm thinking about keeping that Bluebird, I'm probably going to hear about it. I'll just tell you. And I'm kind of being facetious with that a little bit, but anyway. This bus would come with a 10-year, 150,000 mile warranty, and also would cover the after treatment, the DEF system, which it is what it is. If you have diesel, you know why I would say it that way. And here's the unique situation we have. And again, this is not anything but just to give you information. If we order a bus that we'd get in 6 months, give or take a little bit, $147,034. They have 5 buses that have that already been built. They have stock buses, which hasn't happened since COVID. And I don't understand the math on this, because I said, are you sure? Doug Messer is our guy. If we buy a stock bus with the same options as what we want in that bus that listed that we would buy for $147,000 later and get it in 6 months, we could have it a month to a month and a half. It's only $142,459. And they've got like 5 of them, so we could get one if we want one. But that's some reason it's $5,000 less for a bus that's already built. I can't explain that. I don't know. He didn't explain it, so I can't either. It looks like if you had a stock bus, it'd be worth more, but somehow it's not.
Same year model.
Same year, everything. 2025 model, IC bus, exactly what we run, what we like, what we use. It has everything. Actually has a couple of things because it's built for Missouri that we don't do that I like. There's a rear stop sign that comes out when you stop. All of our buses have the one up by the driver. This one has the one at the back of the bus. I've seen a few of them when I've been somewhere that this already has that on it because Missouri requires that. Future buses, I'd kind of like to have that anyway. Honestly, it's a better feature, especially when you have a highway stop like we have a couple of. Definitely better for those. But questions?
My only question was, it seemed like the general way we were looking to go was going with more mid-size gassers instead, and what you're presenting now is a full-size diesel.
Well, the diesel in the long term is, as already been discussed before, is going to last longer. We were trying to go away from diesel because of the nightmare we had.
Right.
I took the job right before the nightmare began, and that we got all that taken care of. The tanks are gone. That nightmare is over, which that was by itself. Ag Partner supplies our fuel. It is winterized where it needs to be winterized. We add How's diesel treatment, which was a real good product. Just as one more thing that makes your fuel do better. This does. We've not had one gel up. We've not had one issue. since all of that got behind us. So we've kind of talked a little bit about it, and I've talked with Lonnie a little bit about it. I know we're leaning toward gas. The midsize, here's the thing, and since you brought that up, I did get him to quote me a 53 passenger bus, which would actually be right at 40, give or take, because again, 3 to a seat at 53, and I don't know why they do it that way. That's just
Still a diesel or a gas?
Still diesel.
Okay.
And that bus would be about $1,000 less than the 71 passenger. So the price is right there. I priced a 53, a 65, and a 71. Again, that's 3 to a seat. 65 is what all of our buses except for bus 1 is. 65 is what the last new bus we bought in 2022, 2023, technically. All of our other buses except for bus 1 is a 65 passenger. And I priced the 65, 53 and the 71, and there's less than $1,000 difference between all 3 of them, which I don't understand that, but that's the market, and that's the way it works. So if we buy one now, we can get it for 142, about 142.5. If we want to order one, then it's 147.
And a lot longer to get it.
And it'll be six months probably at the earliest to get that.
So if we weren't doing this now, would you be recommending this summer or something anyway?
We're gonna need a bus.
Yeah.
We're at that place because we've got.
So we're not saving anything.
I did not anticipate there would be any bus.
Yeah.
Available. So I figure 6 months out.
I found that out Friday. I'm talking to Doug Messer, and he's like, well, I've got 5 ready to go, and believe it or not, they're gonna be less than what it'll be if you ordered one. And I'm like, it's pretty good salesman, I guess, maybe, I don't know.
And yeah, of course, about the Oklahomas. We got those, but other than that, we were kind of in a cycle of at least every other year, sometimes every year. Just kind of depending on cycling some things out.
But we were looking at doing one on this fiscal year regardless.
Yeah.
So whether we do it now or we do it later and pay $5,000 more.
I will
for it,
note
doesn't
that,
change
about since 2018, 17, 18 till now, that, similar sized buses have gone up about $25,000. So.
Well, the
Generally,
2023 was
we're
only
looking at
105,000.
Huh?
The last one we bought was 105.
Okay, more than-
But it should have been closer to 130 by the time we got it, but they ate it because that was the contract. So
Going up though. Yeah, no one can continue to go up.
And are you recommending to get rid of anything out of your 12 buses and 4 vans? Or
Should we ask Chris?
Hold on to
don't ask Chris.
everything until,
We would right now, I would lean toward holding on. If I was gonna get rid of anything, it'd be that 2014 Bluebird. It's got some issues that if we were gonna actually fix it and really fix it all the way, you would spend
more than what-
several $1,000s, and it's just not worth fixing. It's usable. All of our buses are usable. We wouldn't have them if we wouldn't be putting them on the road if they weren't. Last year, we had 2 buses we sold because they weren't usable.
Gotcha.
Um,
So we pulled out what needs to be pulled out of the fleet.
For the most part, like I say, that 2014 Bluebird would be the first one that would go, because it's got some issues that are ongoing things that if we tried to fix, it would be a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort, and maybe not actually fix it. We not constantly, but regularly have to add coolant to it. There's no leaks on the ground. There's nothing inside we don't know what's happening to it. And to fix that would be money. It would just cost a lot of money to try to figure out where that is. And it's an 11-year-old bus, and it's 109,000 miles, and it served its purpose.
Would you use the new bus for going to basketball games or football or
It'd be a
whatever?
route bus. Bus 1 is currently my other trip bus, and it's the one I'll drive. Like Friday, we go to Jeff West. Bus 13 and bus 1 will go. Julie will drive bus 13, I'll drive bus 1. And that's now, bus 8 was the one, and then whenever we swap those around for a route bus, because bus 1 had a problem, it's been fixed and corrected. Now bus 1, because it holds a few more people too. Bus 1's a 71, the other's 65. So we can get a few more people. I don't know if you know any high school students or not, they kind of like spread out when they get the chance. So a bigger bus there for the boys, that's, it's a benefit to
to at least Brady, I guess, I don't know, but bus 1 and bus 13 are my current activity buses. If we go somewhere through the day, sometimes we use some of those others just to use them. And here's what we learned about 14 and 15. I'll go back to that. 14 and 15 sat a lot, and then we would go to use them. They didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to go, or the brake wouldn't release or something like that. So we're like today, like I said, I use 2 different buses today to help take those kids over, because that just gets that bus moving on the road. And if you gotta have equipment or even cars, you let a car sit for a month, it may not start, battery may be dead. It may be, you know, there's all kinds of things that happen when you let them sit. So we're trying to use everything a little, regardless of anything else. You mentioned vans. Let me go to this real quick. We have 4 passenger vans. Our oldest one is a 2011 with 90,000 miles on it. It's the old red one that nobody really seems to like, but we use it because, well, we have to have it. A new, just throwing this out there, I'm not asking for anything, I'm just giving the information. A new one right now, it has to be a 10 passenger that has to be done according to the rules and the way of the state of Kansas. We can't have a 12 passenger. I got a call the other day from a dealer. Hey, we got a 12 passenger van for you. Sorry, I can't have it. It can't be more than 10 passengers by law, according to the state of Kansas. $60,000 right now for a 10 passenger van. And that's a high top. You send it to a outfitter and they make it a 10 passenger van. It comes empty and they put the seats in it. And then they put a special, National Transportation Safety Board sticker on it that says this is rated for 10 passengers. If you don't have that sticker, you get caught in that thing, it's somebody's gonna be in trouble, and it's not gonna be me, because I'm not gonna let that happen. We have our 2 minivans, which a lot of time, which one of them's used at the middle school, the white car is used at the high school for athletic directors, errands, stuff like that. Van 7 is a 2013. That's our newest van, and well, both of them are 13s. They go like when an administrator needs to go to Greenbush or some whatever, somewhere like that. So when you start looking at, and they no longer really, now what Ford recommends is like what we have out here, the Edge, the one we bought last year,
2 years ago.
a couple years ago. If we're going to try to replace a van with, if we don't want to go with that van at 60,000, we can get an Expedition, which will hold 7 people only, but that's still 40,000. Then you start getting in, they're selling Broncos now, which are like the Edge. They don't make the Edge anymore. That, you know, they quit that. So the Bronco, you can get a 5 passenger Bronco now for like 30 to 35. And that's a state contract. All we have to do is say we want it, they'll order it. And 2 or 3 months down the line, we'll get it, because it takes that long to get anything from Ford. Nobody else makes a 10 passenger van. They've all quit making them. Ford's the only one that I know of now. I mean, you go to Mercedes or something, but I'm also realistic. So, but anyway, that just gives you the information, because eventually we're gonna have to start talking about vans, full size vans, as well as minivans, cars, whatever, because we constantly have, I've got 2 trip requests in my deal now to take van 7 or a smaller vehicle, because they don't need a full size van, don't need a bus, those kind of things. And it's, you know, several times a week, our smaller vehicles are going out, as well as our full size vans as well. So, any other questions for me?
Do you want us to make a motion to buy you a van or buy you a bus?
And a bus?
No,
I'm not greedy. I'm just, you said it. So
yeah.
I believe we need to buy one. We're gonna need one, whether you buy it now and save 5,000, or whether you buy it later and maybe spend more than 147,000.
So how do we make that motion to approve the bus that he did, since there's not actually a quote?
We can give you that quote. We just have to record.
You want it? Here. Oh, I can get my.
Midwest Transit for 100.
Midwest Transit equipment, and it's 147. No, that's the lower number. 142,459.
Because my thought is if he's got 5 of them on the lot, I'd tell him 135,000 will take them.
I don't know that it works that way.
They're a state contract, it's just a static price.
Yeah.
That's original.
And then like, we have to go get bids.
Yeah, it won't be little.
So should we approve it for 135 and tell him that he's limited?
That's what I've done.
You remember?
You want me to call the salesman? I got his number. You can talk to him right now.
Oh, no, you come on with Griff and we'll all just listen.
Do you remember the name of that activity bus company that was up for the third? Maybe the convention.
I don't remember, it was Thomas. It was a Thomas bus, but I don't remember. what-
Well, they were built on Ford frames and motor. and transmission.
That would be, Thomas is gonna be
Is that
Kansas
Bluebird?
Truck Equipment.
They're out of.
Bluebird's out of Kansas City. That's,
This group was out of Oklahoma.
Midwest Bus Sales.
The only reason I asked was if the booster club was gonna do something for activities. And these were built like with the,
Storage?
yeah, storage underneath and then like individuals had their own seat. Yeah,
Like a tour bus.
right, like a tour bus.
Charter.
Yeah, right, and it was around that 200 some. So if you pool the money together,
I'd have to.
then you'd have,
What's the other thing needs are out bus?
I know, but then you could take the new bus that you have as an activity bus, make that a route bus, and then you have a dedicated activity. bus.
you wouldn't need your trailer.
And then you wouldn't need the trailer.
But we have 2 buses going to high school activities almost every
Right.
time, so
Piecemeal.
we'd have to have 2
You have to do them.
of whatever. And they've asked about, decking out one of our buses, but if they do, I can't use it on a route if I have to. And there may be times we have to. When we did have our debacle, we had every bus we had. And if we'd have had,
And another district.
as a matter of fact, we borrowed buses from Horton during that little ordeal. So,
Just an idea.
not a bad one at all. And Marysville's got a really pretty activity bus that
I bet they do.
I kind of covet a little bit, honestly. I'm not supposed to covet, but I do a little. But
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna make the motion. There's a lot of doubt being cast around, but I'll make it anyway. I move that we approve for the purchase of a new bus for $142,459 as presented.
Second. Moved and second to approve the purchase of a new bus for 172.59. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you, Jim.
thank y'all. Appreciate your support.
Okay,
We got a good
As long as
crew
you
and
only
good
purchase
folks.
once a year. That's your limit.
We'll see you in January. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right, so I'll just update you, you saw the communication went out, and shared with you about the Power School, that's our student information system, Power School breach. I'll give you an update on that, just to be a little bit more, have a little bit more information. The information that was apparently breached had to do with demographic information in 2 different tables. One was teacher tables, so demographics about a teacher, demographics about a student was the other. So we talk about demographics, really, you're think about contact information, think about addresses, emails, phone numbers, other kinds of emergency contacts, things like that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we do not utilize student social security numbers. We don't have that. Our teachers don't, social security numbers are not part of the student information. They're not in Power School, nothing like that. So nothing like that was ever breached. According to, I sat in on about an hour and a half webinar from Power School, who, absolutely, they shared what steps were taken and that the breach was stopped. Now you can read a lot into that and wonder how this breach happened, and more importantly, wonder how it got stopped, but I don't know that we'll ever know. But anyway, so what our next steps kind of moving forward, and KSD has kind of shared with us some ideas, and one was about utilizing 2-factor verification. Well, we do that. So we've got that. So then what the next thing would be, or 2-factor, 2-factor verification. Next would be, is Power School preparing that same thing? So we think that's in the works, some sort of a verification, that 2-factor authentication verification with them. And then really just changing passwords here at the district level. Most of our folks, I think we require 8 characters and moving up to 12 characters. I know.
I'm at 16 for work.
16. Mine just is 10 automatically. It's just what I set it to be, but more will come. We'll have some more information about that and steps that we'll take as we get on down the road with that. But like I shared with initially, when we got the first notice of it, we were in the clear. Tim and I both had an email that, hey, we're in the clear, but didn't really understand everything. And then the next day, Tim got an email from Power School saying it would appear that after all, your system or your product has been breached, or So that's what I can tell you about.
And just
that.
so it's, it was not on our end, it was
No,
nothing through the school, it
it's
was just.
worldwide, or
Well-
nationwide.
But like, they didn't hack into our system here, it
No,
was
through
through Power School.
Yeah, so
Clear.
Power School hosts our Power School system or Power School setup. Years ago, we used to host our own, but that didn't seem to play into it. Hackers, it's still breach happened in districts that host their own. So that really wasn't part of the factor, I guess. So another thing, speaking of technology, so we've had a server and or switch go out. And I've been nursing that along. We did have a company come up today from Kansas City. They have made some changes on it. It would appear to be working, but there's truly no way until the internet traffic reappears tomorrow when the kids get here. And the classes resume. So we hope we've got at least part of that taken care of. It would appear that the issue over at West Campus is a little different issue. But we have a lead on what that may be as well. So Tim will be working on that tomorrow. So the West Campus has really just not had internet, correct, Darren, since we returned?
Correct.
Everybody else, it's been spotty at best. Middle school's it's less than spotty at the middle school. So whatever the status below spotty is, it's that. So, yeah, it's not been good at all. First, and sometimes if you're on the Ethernet, you don't seem to have that problem. Otherwise, it's just been hit and miss, and it'll get an adjustment made to it, they'll reset something and work for a little bit. So it's switch and or server going down. So we have that being worked on. Hopefully something is improved by tomorrow. I'll know more tomorrow.
So how does that impact the kids that are doing like online courses?
Rhonda, what?
You mean on campus? I mean, if the internet's down,
Yeah.
they can't, they just can't do it. And we haven't, Thursday, when we came back, high school, we were only out for like a couple hours Thursday morning. Actually, I don't even know if it was that long. I think it was on by 9.
Yeah.
Today we were out for like 30-45 minutes, but we got it fixed, and that again was the space heater blowing the.
Yeah, so different.
Yeah, the one thing that's been good at the high school is the guest Wi-Fi has worked more consistently than the WL2. I don't know what that means, but whatever.
It's the teacher.
Yeah, so what we have done on occasion is just put out the guest Wi-Fi for the kids, which we don't typically give them the password, but we give it to them till we get things fixed, and then we change the password. And that has been way more consistent. And like I said, I don't know what it is about the switches, I know way more about it now than I did a week ago, and yes, more than I want to, but yeah, if it happened, like today, it was out for probably 30, like I said, 30-40 minutes. It happened to hit right on 1 hour. So if that was your hour, because today's the short blocks, then yeah, you got nothing done. And then there's just not, luckily it hasn't been a lot at the high school. It's been pretty good. Most of Thursday, all day Friday, we were fine, other than West Campus, which luckily he makes them work with their hands, not with the computer a lot, so we're okay there. Teachers have been, like I said, functioning. I worked all day Tuesday on the snow day and just made a hotspot for my phone and worked that way. So teachers have, I know he's used the hotspot some to be able to communicate, so. Yeah, it stinks if you're supposed to be completely online, but we haven't been out that much at the high school.
All right, thank you.
So speaking, we've talked about snow days and calendar impacts. Really, we're just gonna, I can't predict what's gonna happen in the future. Just that we've got a couple days if we had to use them. Felt like it was really important. We could use the February 18th or 20th or whatever date that is for President's Day. That would mean, boy, we got a lot more snow between now and then. So I'm hoping that's not the case. Chances are we wouldn't notice a need to really be looking at the calendar till closer to March. And if we needed to, then we could look at the April 18th, which I think is Good Friday. If we said, hey, we need to have school to prevent having to come back from Memorial Day to make up hours. Remember, we do run on hours. And then the last option would be you could always add minutes to a school day for a certain amount of calendar time. All of 2020 and 21, remember the late start to school and all that? That's what we did. We actually added minutes. They're useless minutes, folks, to be quite honest. It's just about adhering to the law. So I'll just kind of update you. If we have some more snow days between now and February, we'll talk about it. If we don't, then, you know, knock on wood, just don't really know. But we, like I said earlier in our calendar, we build enough days. And last year we missed, it was either 6 or 7 days. And I started to get a little bit nervous. The only group that was going to be in danger was going to be the seniors because they check out earlier and they were still fine. So,
But don't they also have less hours
required.
required?
They do. Yeah, but it isn't enough to make up for the time difference when they actually leave. There are less hours required, but not enough less hours required to do what most schools do. But it is, as long as you don't have a lot of snow days, then it's not a problem. All right, one last thing I want to talk about here is Reality University, Reality U. Remember doing that last year? So, Mr. Armand, would you speak to the board about Reality U?
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Last March, we had the first offering of an event called Reality U. Three of you folks here at the table got to participate in that activity. And we have it set up for Friday, February 28th. And I'm having an open invitation, extend an invitation here. If any of you folks would like to participate in this activity, you're more than welcome. Real quickly, what we're looking at with Reality U is a personal finance simulation, covers 75 minutes. This year it'll be offered to 8th grade and the sophomore class. It will be in the morning. We are going to go first session 8:45 to 10:15, and we'll roll right into the second session from 10:15 to 11:45. And the way this works is the students will fill out an online survey as though they were a 26-year-old or a 26-year-old self. And they determine what type of life they envision having at that point in time. Are they married, with kids, not married with kids? Kind of, you know, what lifestyle do they wish to have? And the one caveat to this whole thing is when they fill this out, they put in their current GPA. They'll be given their current GPA. And the way the program works, it really narrows down their options as to what they have available. The lower the GPA, the more limited their educational resources may be. There are 12 categories that they'll roll through. They go through childcare, utilities, organization, or a category called food and fun, kind of entertainment aspect there, housing, clothes and hair, student loans, food, insurance, transportation, emergency fund and investment, unexpected life events, and then one that was very interesting. Looks like Griff was part of this one, called help. And they're going along and something happens and they have $1,000 vehicle payment. They can't make that. So what do they have to do? And this, I didn't really know anything about Ms. Fordyce and Ms. Gates. I believe you saw this at, was it Horton, I believe?
With the years back.
And so Ms. Fordyce asked me to assist with this. And as I reported to the board last year, this was a highlight of my teaching career in recent years. It really gets the kids to think. And a new graduation requirement is a financial literacy class. And I'm not sure which year this will be. It's for this year's freshman.
They need it either junior or senior.
Okay, is it for this year's, sorry, this year's freshman?
No,
or
this
eighth
already,
grade?
this year's seniors
Oh, seniors,
have
okay.
financial literacy, personal finance has been added.
Okay, all right. And so this dovetails right in with everything else. And Ms. Tryon, 8th grade math teacher, also has a similar program like this. She's done with kids for many, many years. And what we're offering to you, if you're interested in participating in this, you know, it will be a morning commitment on the 28th. You can get either with myself or Ms. Fordyce, and we will have an online sign up, and we will reach out to other community members. We had a great response to this.
Yeah, can you just sign me up? Because I want to do that.
Okay, absolutely, I can do that. And I don't, how about the three of you? What do you remember from that? If,
I did it last year.
I say everything I've heard
It
about it
was
from
interesting.
everybody
It
was.
was I was in hair and, what was the other hair like?
Hair and beauty.
clothes and hair?
And we also had dog care in that area too. And people were paying, oh, we're gonna pay dog care 5 days a week for my dog, 8 hours a day. Like, what? And they would do it and then they'd come back, I need to change this. And like they went to help and yeah, it was,
And Greg told them no.
Don't get their stuff together.
yeah, it was.
Yo, you guys.
Can't
really
really test
helped it.
well.
Some were married, some were not, some were had kids, some didn't and.
You can sign me up as
Okay,
well.
Yeah.
very good. Very good. And we will have student helpers that will go around and help facilitate things. One of the facilitation, components is we have these babies, and I refer to them as robot babies. And they have a kid, and then they're trying to conduct business and their kid starts crying. And it really got our students to think. And every teacher in our district wants kids to think. And as they get closer, if we can get them out there with a little financial knowledge, we've done part of the job. So, Mr. Mosier, anything, you care?
I think the best part was when you kind of, round robin after.
Yes,
And I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he kind of.
Patrick, yes.
Yeah, led those questions and the revelation of some kids, I didn't realize my parents did all these things. for me,
Mhm.
Paid for all these things for me.
Monthly
and,
bills and.
Yeah,
It developed an appreciation and awareness.
that was the thing that stood out to me the most. I
Mhm.
mean, the realization that you can't have everything became pretty apparent to them very early and you knew that happened. That was the part I didn't expect, but the appreciation for their parents and for how hard it
Okay,
is
you can
to.
sign up.
Well, yeah, and then the table that I helped run was the only two-stop table, and it was based around like 401k and finances and stuff.
Right,
And
right.
they would come back, or they would go through a bunch and figure out, oh, okay, I don't have any money because I spent it all on a fancy car or this or that.
Mhm.
And so then at the end, they would only have, $8,000 to retire on.
Right.
It's like, oh, man.
Because it determines a monthly budget.
Yeah.
And they'll go to different stations and there might be a card they draw or they have to roll a dice and see what life event happens. And
It's just like the game of life.
it is the game of
Exactly.
life, yes. And Ms. Moyer, it is funded this year through our
Yeah,
Perkins
very
funding.
much.
Mhm.
Very much.
So, and again, you don't have to participate. If you want to, great. If you want to just stop by and go through and watch everything, please consider that.
I'll help again.
Okay, very good. All right.
Thank
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you. That I think is it. I'm gonna check in and I'd come up with more.
Special ed report.
Since we got a new teacher who signed up for the RTAP program, which is, again, is the program through the state of Kansas where our employees can go, the parents can go and get their teaching degree, while they're still employed, with the district, and they actually get to function as a teacher while they're going to school. So we're growing our own teachers. So we now have two RTAPs through.
One will be done in a year and the other one's just started.
So super excited about that. We're growing our own teachers. What else? We'll talk about Monday.
Trying to figure out where we're moving with parent or speech paths, yeah, trying to get the best set up for that. No new hires, no resignation.
That's gotta be the first time in a long time. That happened.
And I went over a couple options for speech paths, and I'm only doing it virtual. There was anywhere from $54 an hour to $100 an hour and. Still trying to figure all that out. Any questions? Item Q, executive session.
I would be 15.
We're gonna do line evaluation. How long do you guys want? 15?
We're doing that first or?
Yeah, first, yeah. So we need to do 15 and then come back out, or just invite you back in?
You can do it either
Yeah,
way.
as long
I
as
mean,
I would set it up for them, then what you wanna do is set up for 30.
Yeah, let's do, okay.
And, or you could, actually, you could set up for less than that and just come back and add, it's however you wanna do
Let's
it, but
do
Levi
30.
would simply just note when I went in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do 30.
We have to vote.
Motion to enter executive session for 30 minutes.
Motion to move next session for 30 minutes, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passed. Present for 30 minutes. Any action following?
Yes, I move that we accept the resignation of Emily Chandler.
Second.
Moved in second to accept the resignation of Emily Chandler at the end of the school year. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0.
I move that we approve Ryan Smith as the fourth grade, or as the fourth HMS basketball coach.
Moved in second to approve Ryan Smith as the fourth HMS basketball coach. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0.
I move to approve Matt Morton as the head HHS boys and girls track and field coach.
Second.
Moved in second to approve Matt Morton as HHS boys and girls track coach. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second. Moved in second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passed 7-0.
See.
It feels later.
It's outside.